begin with a small presentation on a trip that LCM took this last summer, including many of our students. And this trip helped us perhaps illustrate and put a more human face on the issues that we are going to talk about today. You find these narrow streets that are obviously heavily surveyed and heavily guarded. So there you see a Muslim woman walking about, and an old man sitting down having some orange juice on a very peaceful street. But if you would turn to the other side of the street, this is what you would find. A lot of police officers. Ask yourself whether that inspires confidence and safety.
Only specifically give the money to NGOs so that they can help build roads and schools.
So like, if we give them the money and they're just like, so what, and spend it on their own stuff, how are we actually going to monitor that? What force are we going to use, if any?
Remember, we're not the only ones funding them. They're still going to have all the weapons that they need.
This money could be used to make their cities look a lot nicer and have people have a better life.
If you were to just like jumble up the government there and make it a unified state, there would be a lot of problems, especially if that government were to declare central religion. Declaring statehood isn't necessarily the best.
When creating amendments, we should probably stay away from third-party like negotiations, because we don't really have power over that, and that could really stall amendments.
Senator Hogan.
Present.
Senator Corker.
Present.
Senator Toomey.
Present.
We cannot fund terrorism. They are killing some of our own citizens and Israelis. And the worst part is that the money that we're giving to the Palestinian government is then being given to them, while these poor people's families have had a member killed.
We need to send them a strong message that we will not support terrorism.
We have an obligation to our veterans to make sure nobody has to die the death that Taylor Force died in the future.
So all those who wish to be added to the speakers list, please raise your placards now. Senator Booker, Senator Gardner.
Simply breaking off financial ties will not solve this problem. The pay-to-slay policy is not going to go away merely because you withdraw your funding. It is far deeper than that. So if you want to be part of the solution, then you have to be involved. If you want to be part of the problem, then exclude yourself and you will never have a relationship with the Palestinian people.
You saw pictures of the conditions in Palestine right now, and a lot of this is because of violence. If we can minimize the amount of attacks that go on in Palestine and Israel, we can minimize these conditions.
Removing the funding won't do anything. That money can be easily spawned for by other countries. And it's not going to stop the pay-to-slay policy by any means.
Motion for a 5-minute unmoderated caucus to prepare Amendment 1.0.
Right now in Palestine, becoming a terrorist is one of the highest paid
What's your senator?
We want to pull $1
Bipartisan support.
No, it can't. Yes, it can.
The problem with giving humanitarian aid to the Palestinian Authority is that money is fungible, and they could take that humanitarian aid and then just direct more of their budget to fund the pay-to-slay program.
Humanitarian aid, as was pointed out by Senator Risch, is vaguely defined in the Taylor Force Act, and therefore anything essentially could be interpreted as humanitarian aid or not. We don't necessarily know.
So the rest of the day will be spent discussing amendments and the way that this is going to work. So 2 speakers for and 2 speakers against. Then we'll either motion to table or close the bill. All those wish to speak for this bill, please raise your flag.
We can't continue funding Palestine while it is committing acts of terrorism against the United States.
Why wait 3 years to get our money? Like, we could just get money from other nations or ask for more.
The buffer period will also give us some time to think about what our next step is.
The reason why we need to keep on giving them money is because if we stop it,
then we're taking away money from families who have lost the person who makes the money and putting them in the streets because we're giving them collective punishment.
All those in favor of tabling this amendment, please raise your flag. This motion does not pass. Is there a motion to close debate on this amendment, Senator Paul? All those in favor of this amendment? This bill passes unanimously.
I don't understand why they don't like it. Like the Palestine.
Okay, we are now introducing Amendment 3.
This is understanding that Palestine Authority continues to pay salaries to terrorists and their families who have slaughtered people in brutal acts of terrorism, and that they glorify so-called martyrs that participate in these horrible acts.
Package 3 will be granted to the Palestinian Authority for the following year if the annual report written 1 year after the issuance of Package 2 or Package 3 is favorable.
Number 1 is that the purpose of this debate is to restrict United States aid to a country that sponsors terrorism, not to provide aid and for all-encompassing aid packages, where the third aid package encompasses everything not included in the first two.
Taylor Act allows for the Palestinian government to get rid of their programs for just hours and run off with all of our money that we have put in the escrow account.
Basically, we're not funding a state that supports terrorism. We're actually doing the opposite. We're rewarding them for stopping terrorism.
Appears to be that all aid, we are required to give them all aid once Package 3 is allowed, which I have no idea what that means. That could be your entire foreign aid budget.
I agree that the Palestinian people do not deserve to get no help from the U.S., but the Palestinian Authority does not deserve the help.
We are cutting down on the amount of money that we're giving to Palestine by two-thirds, which means that we're significantly reducing the burden on the American taxpayer. We're putting that into humanitarian crises like schools, roads, infrastructure, so people can actually get hospitals so they can get the things that they need.
So basically Amendment 2 will be strictly for the civilians and will find a way around the pay to slay policy.
Could you be a bit more specific? Because I don't think I could see myself voting for this bill.
So basically what we're trying to do is not only manage the funding, but try and facilitate peace talks so that we can go deeper into the problem and try and have it be resolved faster.
And if Palestine does not take part in these peace talks, we will not give the money directly to the PA and instead give it to NGOs that will help with building roads, schools, and hospitals.
So although this humanitarian aid amendment may seem appealing, it leaves the Palestine Authority with more money to fund terrorism and ultimately corrodes the objective of this debate, which is to focus and save lives of the people of the state of Israel.
No, this is a much more deep and more cultural issue that you cannot solve through peace talks.
I mean, if you just sneak around their government like that, that's gonna destroy our relations.
These NGOs are completely legal. They've been operating for a long period of time, and it's completely actually helping their government.
All right, so all those in favor of closing debate on this amendment, please raise your flag now. All those in favor of passing this amendment, please raise your flag now. All those opposed to the veto, all those abstaining, this amendment clearly fails.
There's a fundamental loophole in this, in the current act, which is a really big problem, which is that right now, Palestine can just end their pay to slay thing for 3 hours and then get all the money in this escrow account and then just get it back up.
And that's what our amendment does, and it fixes this loophole.
We're going to now hear from the sponsors of Amendment 5.
Fellow Senators, as I surmised from observing the debate over Amendment 4, there was some confusion and need for clarification, and we believe that Amendment 5 is that clarification, as well as a means to address all the issues present in Amendment 4.
In the event that Palestine lies on the biannual report, the Palestinian Authority will be held accountable in the International Court of Justice.
We have more flexibility and control, as well as a more diverse scope as to where the aid can and will go.
All those in favor of this amendment? Alright, this clearly fails.
The thing is, senators, that these people are people, and this entire amendment is on trust. If we pass this, we can help the United States, we can help our allies, and we can help the people of Palestine, which I think is the greater goal here, to help people.
The United States will investigate the expenses of the Palestinian Authority monthly. If Palestine uses this money for martyr or another act of terrorism, the U.S. will withdraw and no longer give any money to Palestine because of the break of trust.
How exactly would you define how distributing any way appropriate? Because as the bill is currently written, it appears that they could use that money for anything but to pay the slaves. You said which means it could be used for terrorist actions, actions against Israel, or actions against U.S. strategic interests.
Money will go to humanitarian aid, all these things that will help the society and infrastructure and all that stuff of Palestine to help the people, but it will not go to anything against our allies.
This is Bill 11.0, and it is to create a comprehensive bill regarding the state of relations.
After agreement and compliance of the Palestinian Authority to the aforementioned requirements, the money existing within the escrow account shall be returned at a rate of 25% annually over 4 years.
Verifiable intelligence that suggests that the Palestinian Authority has lied within the report shall result in indefinite suspension of American aid and the trial of the Palestinian Authority in the International Court of Justice.
We are now in voting procedure. All those in favor of passing Amendment 11.0? All those abstaining, this motion or this amendment passes. All right, this bill and amendment passes.